Alright, good morning Art 1 students. Today we're going to do the second part of the practice one. We're going to build into the sky, add some more layers into the sky, basically define the clouds a little bit more on this one and on the other one. Hopefully you've decided which one to do, or maybe you've decided to do both. I guess that would be fine if you want to watch the video again and do both. We can count one of the practice ones as one of your real, but you're supposed to be applying these principles that I'm teaching you here to the studies that you have picked out, at least 2 different reference photos. Remember, we're doing these out of our head. It's better to have a reference photo. So let's get started here, kind of where we left off yesterday on this one, making the puffy clouds. Got a nice clean tray over here. Just add water and absorb out the paint if you need to on here. Never run water over these, you'll just destroy all your paint. I also have a couple of Q-tips here handy that might come in handy today. You have a couple of Q-tips at your house. Otherwise, paper towel or Kleenex would work just fine. So remember, you have to have patience and you have to let it dry in between layers, and you have to build up the layers. That's the idea. You also have to try to master the amount of pigment and the amount of water, the water and pigment ratio. So what I'm going to do is just start by making a little bit darker sky color. We work from light to dark. We work with lighter layers first and then build on the darker ones. So my sky color, I'm obviously going to use some blue here and some violet a little bit. That's pretty dark, so I'm going to add a little bit more water to lighten that down. You can see the tray through the paint. That's probably going to be a little bit more about what I want. I might even take a little hint of red to get that a little more purpley. Might look nice. You'll notice we don't have any white in our trays. That's because if I didn't have enough white, you guys might actually have white in a set at home or something, but I never learned how to paint with white watercolor paint. I always used the white of the paper, so I didn't feel bad not sending you guys home with white. You need to learn how to use the white of the paper to make your white, keep things light. But if you do have a set that has white in it, which none of the ones that I sent home have that, you'll be able to do a few more things. But for everybody that's got there's basically 2 ways to define these clouds, okay? If I don't put any water down on the paper first, like we did yesterday, and I just go straight to the pigment, I can begin outlining things. Now what I'm doing here, I see kind of a light, maybe you guys, yours aren't going to look exactly like mine, but there's kind of a subtle cloud shape right here. You guys can see that it's not quite white, but it's not quite as dark as my sky. So I'm looking for areas like that I can make into more defined cloud shapes. So I didn't put any water down on the paper. I'm just coming here directly with the paint, and you can see how it's a little bit darker than what I used yesterday. I can go ahead and begin pulling that around some edges. Here's a nice cloud shape right here. I can define that. The only disadvantage of using this technique is you'll kind of have the harder edges might not be what you want. So usually what you'll do is if you do this, even if you don't put any water on the paper first, you clean your brush and we'll fade that edge out. So even if I have kind of a decisive edge here, I can soften it up a little bit and then use the side of the brush, a little bit of water, and fade that out. Keep things light towards your horizon. You'll be glad you did later. But see how this is more defined? So I would maybe just come with a clean brush and soften the edge so that it's not such a hard line. Okay, it's one way to define stuff and build layers. The other one is basically what we did yesterday, where you put the water first. So I got a nice cloud shape over here. I'm going to put my water down first. It is going all the way to the horizon, so I'm going to want to watch that. I'm going to use my same color here. Don't get too crazy with your colors in the sky. Some of you guys might have stormy, cloudy, really cloudy skies where you've got some gray, where you're going to have to use some black, and that's okay. You just do this exact same process, but here's what we did yesterday. I'm just applying it another layer of it, basically a little darker, so when I put the paint in the water, it automatically begins to run and do some effects. Basically the pigment will go wherever the water is, and might even break into this cloud a little bit with some brush marks. I'm just kind of making little dabbing marks like this, just to get some interesting shapes. Now I don't want to leave those edges. Clean my brush off, dry it a little bit, and then fade them in just like we did with the other one. If I have an edge where there's paint and I put water beside it, it's going to bleed into the water, and that's fine. Sometimes you want to do that. You want to control that, though. You don't want to do it on accident. For example, I would not want to paint this horizon right here of my middle ground while that sky is still wet. So do not do that. Alright? I've seen a lot of students get impatient and they try to paint next to something that's wet and they destroy their painting. This is why you have to let it dry and have patience. So I'm kind of building into that sky a little bit, building some layers. I think I might just use some straight blue here. Make sure I've got it light enough, just very light amount of blue. And I'm going to start dark up here and just get a little bit lighter towards the horizon. So I'm just setting some more pigment in there. Take a little bit of water, soften it up around the edges of the clouds. Dry the brush off if you have too much water on there, and then control how much water and where that pigment is going to go. I'm just going to fade that down to the horizon. So that's kind of starting to build some layers. You can, I don't know what this white splotch is here. You can just build several layers, maybe 2 or 3. Don't get over crazy with it. If you see something that's looking nice and you want to leave it alone, then leave it alone. Feel like you want to keep building. I did want to show you this, something you can do if you get too, maybe you get too crazy, like you accidentally went down through here with some color and you don't really like it. So you can take your Q-tip and you can roll that Q-tip, and that'll make some cool cloud shapes. You might even do that on purpose. You might just say, okay, well, I'm going to take some of my pigment here, my purple and blue mix, set it in here, and then just roll that Q-tip through, or just dab it, and you can get some interesting little smaller cloud shapes. Alright, so something to consider on those. Now let's move over to the Stratus Sky, or desert sky. So on this we're going to imagine clouds going left to right. You can kind of see there's a little bit of definition of those in here, but we're going to stretch out some clouds along this, and we're going to start with our lighter color. I'm going to start with some yellow. So I'm going to keep this pretty thick. It's not thick like acrylics and temperas, but it's a lot thicker than what I was just using. Alright, and I'm going to begin by just drawing, or painting I suppose, just some basic lines across here. What this is going to be the sunlight that's supposedly down here, like right behind the horizon, hitting the bottom of the cloud shape. Alright, so this is actually the bottom of the clouds. What I'm doing here, I might just put a few lines across, maybe start one from the right side, stretch it over, start one from the left side, stretch it over, and just let your brush thin out. As you pick it up, it'll get thinner. Might even get one more up here towards the top, maybe around in here. So that's going to be some cloud shapes that are kind of stretched across the sky. Now I'm going to take a little bit of red orange. So I got my red, I'm going to mix it up here. A little bit of orange, want it to be a little darker than that, so I'll just take a little bit more red. So nice red-orange for my actual clouds. Again, this isn't too thin, isn't too thick, it's kind of in the middle. And I'm going to go right on top of the yellow lines that I just put in there. And got a little piece in here that might look kind of cool, so I'm just going right on top of that, using just the tip of the brush. Alright, so that's kind of the dark upper part of the cloud, whereas the bottom is going to be catching that sunlight. And if those yellow marks are still wet, that's good. They might be kind of bleeding in together a little bit. I actually want to do a little bit of that on purpose, so I wash my brush out and dry a little bit so I don't have a ton of water on there, and then I just hit the edge of that red and let it run right down into the yellow a little bit. I don't want to use so much water that I cover up my yellow, but I want this to look like a natural transition. So I'll just clean the brush, dry it off a little bit. Maybe yours ran together really nicely. If not, go ahead and try to blend it a little bit like this. Okay, now let's really make this sunrise gleam out right here. So I'm going to take some yellow, and again I'm going to make it pretty thick, and I'm going to start stretching this. I'm imagining my sun about right here, just below the horizon. I'm going to leave it white right there, like the glowing white of the sun, and then it's going to be pretty vibrant yellow right above that. And then I'm just going to fade that up a little bit. Doesn't really matter if you go over your mountain shapes. That we're going to do those dark, like a reddish brown, so it'll easily cover over the yellow. Alright, now let's go ahead and darken up this sky a little bit more at the top. I know I might be going fast, but you guys can just pause the video, come back when you're ready. What I want to see up there is a nice red violet, so I'm just going to take my purple that I already had from my other sky, add some more purple to it. I'm going to add a nice little bit of red, and a really warm color here, desert sunset color. And I'm going to start that right up at the top. You can see here why we do the light layers first, and then we can kind of build into these darker colors. The layers will show things to you, they'll materialize stuff for you. Like I see there's like a line right here. Just going to kind of turn that into another sort of cloud looking shape. Just take some time to blend it a little. Cover over things. If I go a little too fast, I might need to back stuff off. You can do that with a paper towel or a clean brush. I want this to transition into more of a reddish, so I'm just going to take some straight red, or maybe even my cloud color that I was using. I think I'm going to use just straight red. So that'll work well against the yellow down there. Alright, now this is still a little too bright for my liking right through here. Now I don't want to do purple on that unless I did it really, really light. What I probably am going to want to do there is just take some red, or tell you what I'll do is I'll take some red and put it into my violet, make a nice red violet. As it comes down towards that sunrise, it'll warm up even more. Just going to take that all the way across. You can get some nice sense of subtle color changes in the sky. Might even take a little bit of it below that. Alright, I don't really like what I see happening up here, so I'm going to make it another cloud. Just take some red and throw it on there. Might even go so bold as to take a little bit of yellow and see what happens if I throw some yellow up in here, like it's barely catching some of those last rays of light there at the top. Alright, now the reason why we work on more than one at a time is because as that one dries, we can come back to this one. The sky is totally dry. Now I want to start working on your middle ground a little bit. And probably all we'll do today, we'll do the middle grounds on both of these. And then we'll work on foreground and different techniques tomorrow to get details. So, for a middle ground on this one, I'm imagining a grassy hill, like green. Now I could just be lazy and go straight to green and put it on there, but it won't look nearly as nice as if I do a little bit of color mixing. As I think about the middle ground and the land, I want to think about something that's called atmospheric perspective. What this is it means that things that are further away are going to be lighter. They're going to seem like they're more faded out. And as they come closer to us, they're going to become more bold and defined. So we're going to keep back here pretty light, and then as we come forward, we're going to end up layering pretty dark layers in here. You need to decide whether you want this thing to be a river or a road. I think I'm going to go with a road. If it was a river, all you would do is treat it just like the sky. You would just reflect the sky to start with. But we're going to keep it as a road. So let's start making our green hills. I am going to start with green. That's the basic color I'm imagining. I'm putting my middle ground in this middle section here. And do some things like that to help, keep things logically in order. You notice I rearranged the tray to make it to where I have my warm colors, then my cool colors, then my natural and earthy colors, my brown and my black. As I refilled those trays, some of those trays, they might have got mixed up, so feel free to pop those out of there and get them arranged the way that makes sense to you. I got my warms over here, again, cools in the middle. I'm going to treat this as my middle ground area. It doesn't really matter, whatever you want to do, if you don't want to get that elaborate on it. So I'm going to start with some green, and then I'm going to lighten it up because I want my atmospheric perspective to come into play. So I add a little bit of yellow to my green, give me a nice grassy color. And I think I'm just going to start with that. I'm adding a little bit more water to keep it really light. And because that sky is dry, I can paint right over the edge of it, right up to the horizon, right up to where my clouds meet. And then I'm just going to go, I didn't add any water onto the paper before this. I'm just jumping right in, starting with a nice green hill here. Now, as those clouds break, it might make light change on the ground. So you don't have to make this all one consistent thing. I'm going to kind of start a little darker toward the top there, and then as it comes down I'm going to lighten it, but don't worry, I'm going to come back and get darker down here in a little while. What I'm saying is you could add some more yellow just for a little bit of a accent area in here, as if the light is shifting and changing. I'm just taking straight yellow and putting a little bit of it on there. Use the advantage of the watercolors. It's so nice how they blend and run together for you. So I've got a little yellow, maybe indicating some light. Also, as I bring it down here, I might go even more earthy, which would be some brown. So I'm going to take my brown. I'm not going to go straight onto the paper with the brown because it is really strong. I'm going to mix it into my green and darken that up down there by the road. Maybe even go ahead and bring it all the way down here for now. Fade it up. Remember, where I pick up my brush will leave a puddle, and if you want that, that's okay. If not, you can run the brush off the paper and pick it up out here, or you can just use up all the paint and water on your brush. There's a start. This one over here I want even lighter, so I'm going to start with my yellow. I'm just going to mix it right into that brown and green color that I had, but it's going to be predominantly a yellow. And I'm going to spread this pretty thin. because I want this to be even lighter for now. Now if I hit this edge over here, it's going to bleed. Like, watch, if I hit that, it's going to pull that dark green down into there. If you're real careful, you can just not hit that edge, just go right up over to here. And then I think I'm going to go with some brown and yellow for this grass toward me. I'm trying to warm it up as it comes towards me. Also, warm colors will advance, cool colors will retreat. So got kind of a brown and yellow mix here for this to begin with. I throw a little of my green on there too. Notice for this one I didn't put any water down first. I'm going to start with that. We will come back to this. That's the first layer. We can do a lot of layers on the middle ground. Let's have some fun with this one. And then that'll be it for today. A 30-minute lesson is probably getting long on the video upload, but hopefully it'll be okay. So for these mountains here, what we're going to try to imagine, we're going to actually put some distant mountains back in here, but this is going to be really easy to make these look defined. I'm going to use a reddish brown. So I already have some red orange up there, might as well use that. So I'm going to take some red, clean my brush so I don't get my paints too corrupted. I'm going to take my brown and I'm going to keep it pretty thick. Not quite that thick. Add a little more red. If you like that color, that's fine. If you want to lighten it up, since it's on the warm side, you could add a little yellow, a little orange. But you want it to be significantly darker than that yellow sky behind it. Okay, so now because this sky is dry, again, so I would work on more than one. If I was to do this right here and that yellow sky behind it was still wet, I would just destroy my sky. So don't do that. Let it dry. Let it dry. Or the paint's going to bleed all over the place. I'm adding some more brown. That's not quite as dark as I would like it. Too red. So as I go down through here, you can see my paint is a little bit thick. Just following the contour of my pencil line. Now, when I get to here, I'm gonna stack some more up. I'm just pushing the brush up. Those are going to be pushed off into the distance. You can do that anywhere if you want to, put one way back in here. You can come and define that a little bit more later. Still not quite brown enough for me. I want to add some more brown. I want you guys to see the distinct contour of that. And then I'm just going to pull that down, adding some water, and just when you hit the edge of that, it'll just pull that down. And then I'm going to take some yellow and add it right in here. I got someone at my door, so I need to go. We will talk more in a little while. Hopefully you guys are having some fun with this. Hopefully you're enjoying your virtual learning. All this stuff is for a grade. I'm thinking about setting up a meeting to where we can Google Meet together as a class, and if we do that, I will send you the link and you can ask me questions and we can look at your work and I can give you some feedback that way. I'm just detailing a few more things here, raising up some of these ridges past my white area. And yeah, I guess that's about it. I can't really think of anything else. Email me your questions. Hopefully you guys are doing good. Talk to you soon.